don't think I repaired any wires there, but I'm gonna double check. I'm gonna let the car run for a few minutes and just, there it goes, it died. Hey there amigos, Tio here. Today I've got a 2012 Chevy Impala. Backstory on this vehicle is I had it in January this year. It was the first car I actually had in my shop. It was towed in. It was a no crank, no start. Cover more on what that was. I've got some video footage from that never turned into a video, but now the customer sold this vehicle to a customer and they brought it back, and he said his words to him were he was driving 80 miles an hour and the car cut off and he almost died. So that's all I know from the customer he sold it to. I had a vehicle in here that I finished up for this customer, and so he drove the vehicle while I monitored the live data while we were driving down the road. Multiple times the stability message come up on the dashboard and the tachometer would drop, and it was like it would shut off, but it didn't. It would come back and the dashboard would ding. On the live data, I wasn't seeing anything except at one point when I was monitoring the O2 sensors, because there's a code for the O2 sensors. When that happened, the communication would drop out. I'd lose communication. So I'm thinking it's 100% communication problem, but I'm also thinking that it may be due to one of the wires in the wiring harnesses that I repaired, because there was multiple. This car, the wiring harnesses were butchered. There's a little over 600 miles since I had it in January on this car, so that, not much, and it just started. So I'm thinking my approach to this is because when we got here, we parked it outside. It was a no start for a moment, and then after we moved a gear shift lever and turned the key a few times, it finally started again, and we drove it inside. So it starts right now, no problem. I run the codes with the launch and the Altel. I've been using the launch more just to see if there's any differences. Just for info, the only issue that I have between the two is the VCI that you plug into the DLC is a little big, so I have to break out my bob to use that VCI on for the launch. But other than that, they're pretty much the same, and they both come up with the same codes. They were we're talking O2 sensors, and then the rest of them are lost communications, so with the PCM. So let's get to it. I'm gonna go ahead and pop the hood, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hook up the Altel, and because it's wireless, I can hold my pad with me as I'm at the wiring harnesses that I repaired. So I'm gonna check them first and see if I can move them right where I did the repairs and see if the communication goes out. Maybe try to narrow down where it's coming from, because while we were driving, it would drop out when he's accelerating or when he's not. When we're sitting at a light, we were at the bank drive-through and it just cut off completely. So there doesn't seem to be a certain thing that we're doing that causes it. It was running at the car lot for his lot attendant and just shut off. So don't know. So let's do that. Let's go that direction first and see if we can lose communication that way. All right, because there is no rhyme or reason to what's going on here. The freeze frame data is all over the place. It was an open loop with a RPM of 3813. It did it in closed loop at 684 RPM. Codes for the O2 sensors. And what we got here? We have O2 sensor, control module, long-term memory, lost communication. So again, so we're going back, and the launch has the same info. So, and like I said, because this dropped out, lost communication, while I was watching the O2 sensors, I have the ignition signal up on here as well. Although in the freeze frame data, the ignition signal was still good. The main relay for the PCM is internal, which there's another one external you can change that powers up the fuses that work out of the things. That's one, the internal one is one of the ones that was messed up when I had it in January. This wiring harness here was butchered. There's one wire under here butchered, which I'll pull that off. I don't want to remove anything yet. And then over here on the passenger side, at the firewall, is where all the main damage was. It was in, and it was right, if we can see it. Let's see if I can do that camera thing. All right, this harness right here was actually butchered, and the wires are running down through here, bare wires, which I think I have a picture. I'll put it up during editing. And then this over here is still a little butchered, but what I did was I repaired which wires were bare in there. And then on the driver's side, at the BCM, they were butchered. So my assumption is, at the time, another car lot had put some kind of disabler in here, is what I determined later, and they took it out, part of it, and left the wires bare. And then when something didn't work, they went to the main feed to the fuse box, and I don't know how they burnt that out, but the actual main relay inside the fuse box was gone. They butchered the wires to it, and I just don't know. So anyway, this location, the location under there, on the passenger side, and then the driver's side with the BCM is where I'm going to go. So I'm just going to touch it and move it and see if I lose communication or I hear the ding from the dashboard. And you're probably asking yourself, well, why don't you just hook up the network on a Pico and do that? And I'll probably end up doing that in a few, but I want to check where I was at first, and I know that this should kick out if I hit the right spot. It's just a thought before I start moving things. So nothing there. Just open hood is all we have. Okay. And then the only other location is on the driver's side. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take the lower plastic off to get to that. I'll be back. Tupperware removed. I don't know if you can see it well, but that one wire right there with the heat shrink on it, that's the one I repaired. It was kind of stripped with the wire, and it had some type of a wire cap that you would see in a house lighting situation, but that's what I soldered back and put heat shrink on. So that's the wire I'm going to be moving over here rather than take the BCM out again. So we'll see. Now I'm actually doing the 5-volt references now. So I'm going to move that wire. Let's see. Did I had to play that back? I saw it. Something moved. Oh, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the ignition signal. Okay, it's changing on its own. It's not me changing. I've got the battery charger on it because I'm leaving the key on. It's fluctuating between 71 and 72. That's nothing big. Okay. So now as the rest of my voltage is up. Yes. Everything's holding steady, even with that wire moving. Okay, now I'm gonna make my way under the hood and look at the other wire harness that I actually repaired now that I got the Tupperware off of that. And that's going to be right here. So, all right, so no changes. All right, so now the next thing for me to try is I'm gonna start the car, open the rear door, and do it that way, and do the exact same thing over again. All right. So all my reference signals look good. Communication's still there. Let's see what else I've got. Let's move this one first. Actually, just down here, see if I can get my hand back up in here. I'm moving the wires. All right, so for right now, I'm gonna say that the wiring harnesses that I worked on are probably not the issue. I do remember the PCM, I don't remember what I did there. I'll have to go back and look at my notes. I don't think I repaired any wires there, but I'm gonna double check. I'm gonna let the car run for a few minutes and just, there it goes, it died. There you go. And did I lose? No, I didn't lose it. I didn't lose communication either. Just the car stalled. Okay. And nothing on the dashboard, no stability problems. Okay. Odd. Okay, now it kicked out, obviously. So, have to put on the thinking cap. Ha, can't even speak. All right, I'll be back. Before I do that, let me see if it'll start without cycling the key, just right there. Yep, okay. Okay, all right. Put on the thinking cap and see what where to go next. Maybe it's gonna install that again. Okay. All right. I got the air box off of the PCM. Got it strapped up here just so I can run the car. But I remember what it was back when I had it in January, when I went down to the PCM to pin out the PCB relay. The covers to these were off, and there were a couple wires that somebody had tapped into that didn't, they didn't put no liquid electrical tape or anything like that on it, but that's what fixed it. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start the car and just move the wires and see if it causes the car to cut off, because I looked at the code, the P062F. I was reading the theory and operation on that. That could probably be my issue, but we'll explore that more in a minute. Let me see what happens here. When I had this car in January, initially it came in, the customer said it was a no crank, no start, and they said it needed a new computer. And I told them hold off on the computer until I checked it, and as it turned out, like I said, it was the wiring harness all butchered. So that solved the problem of the no start then. So, all right. So was that there all along? We don't know, but anyway, I'll just move this around a little bit. See if it causes anything. All right, well, doesn't appear moving it. All right, let's see if we can catch it turning off on its own. Again. Looking towards that. So that P062F, I believe it was the code. That long-term memory. That one I think I'm going to chase a little further and see what I can find on that. According to the service info, it's saying the biggest fix was the battery. We haven't had any problems with the battery, but the other ones were PCM, reprogrammed the PCM. That might be an option. Here next week. Alright, so I'm gonna look into it a little more. Alright, so it is the next day. Before I left last night, I went ahead and removed the PCM. I used the scanner to extract the calibration information for the PCM. When I was taking the battery loose, the ground it wasn't actually loose, but it was able to turn. That's important because I've already cleaned it, and I had a problem with that terminal back in January when I worked on it. But anyway, so last night when I got to the house, I sit down and check the calibrations of the PCM, and everything is up to date, actually. Coming out of the PCM. But more importantly, during that time, I found TSB on this particular situation. So this one, the code, that 062F, it actually addresses the fact that it will set the O2 sensor codes and that code. And it's saying that some dealers will notice the P062F set in the ECM. This will be active for history, and the code can falsely set during a low battery condition. This can also trigger certain O2 sensor codes, which is exactly what I have. it goes on and on and on to check the battery and such and such. And as I said, that was an issue. Now in January, when I took that terminal off, I actually used my tool that you take the window cranks off of cars with to get it up under it, because it just seemed like it wouldn't come off. And so I sprayed it in January with I don't know, a little liquid wrench or something, and I made sure it was tight when it went back on. But I also went back and looked at the video from January when I first looked at this car, and I made a comment about a note being on the seat about the battery being dead. They'll be back for it. So it's like it left a note. It was on the side of the road, maybe broke down, and they were coming back with a battery. So I looked at the date code on the battery, and it's down there in the corner. And if I'm reading it right, that battery was from August of 2020. So that'd be about right. During that time frame, they got a battery and put it in there. So right this moment, that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to put the PCM back in, clear the codes, make sure that's good and tight, and then see what happens. And then if it does it again, because I really don't like this terminal right here, I'll go ahead and tell the customer we need to go ahead and replace that. And I do remember in January, I don't remember why, I should have wrote that down, but there was something about the ground. Maybe I was checking the ground when I was doing that circuit or something, but I remember that bolt down there is really, really difficult to get to. So anyway, so that's where I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna put that back in, clear the codes, make sure that's good and tight, and then check it and see where we'll go from there. So I'll be back. All right, in summary, on the P062F on the 2012 Impala, the negative battery terminal, even when I was done, I still couldn't get it tight enough that it wouldn't turn by hand. So I went ahead and replaced that, and drove it for a couple hours, no problems. So if you have a P062F, look at the TSB, look at the TSB on it, and you'll see that the P062F, first thing I would check, and like I say, it sets codes for the O2 sensors. So the first thing I would check would be your battery, the terminals. Even though they appeared tight, the ground on this one would still turn if you did it by hand. So the fix is, oh, this one's gonna be fun. This was a non-communication. Having fun with that one. Anyway, this one's done, no problems, but just had to replace that ground terminal there. Nice and tight. It does not move now, and no problems with the car. 2 hours of driving it, no more codes. Thanks for watching.